Salve a tutti, buonasera, grazie per la pazienza, sono un po' in ritardo, perdono, ma è stato un po' di avvenimenti oggi, quindi va bene, io posso urlare, non c'è problema. No, se voi sentite sì, perfetto. Okay.
So good afternoon, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for the third day of the UIS Symposium. Today we have the pleasure to host Dr. Francesca Carlesi, CEO of Revolut UK, with our moderator and CEO of UIS, Ferdinando Principe. So enjoy the talk, and thank you again to our sponsors, our main sponsors, Tancredi, and our other sponsors, Gomri and Velut's International Partners. So thank you and a round of applause.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome, Francesca. Welcome to Imperial College. It's a pleasure. I would like to present before starting the conversation. So Francesca Carlesi is the CEO of Revolut UK, where she leads the company's UK business at a pivotal moment in its evolution from high-growth fintech challenger to fully regulated banking player. Revolut has grown into one of the world's leading financial super apps, serving tens of millions of customers globally and reshaping how people manage payments, savings, investing, and broader financial services. Before joining Revolut in December 2023, Francesca was the founder and CEO of Molo, the UK's first fully digital mortgage lender, which she launched in 2017 and led through its growth and exit in 2023. Earlier in her career, she held senior roles across consulting, private equity, and banking, including at McKinsey and Company, Richpoint Capital, Barclays, and Deutsche Bank. This combination of entrepreneurial and institutional experience gives her a distinctive perspective of how technology, regulation, and innovation are transforming financial services. Please give her a warm welcome.
Okay, you raise expectations too much
No,
let me say one thing, because we need to say that we are over the pivotal moment, because as of today we are a bank, so that is a fantastic moment for all of us. It was not planned to happen today, but I'm particularly happy to be celebrating this, to be here exactly on this day. So this is a special moment.
Thank you. I wanted to arrive at that moment, but it's fine. And so let's start from the beginning, because you worked around investment banking, consulting, and at some point in 2017 you left you left a successful career in a traditional finance and consulting to found Molo. And my question is, what first made you realize that the financial system needed to change, and what was the moment when you decided that the mortgage industry needed a complete rethink?
Okay, so, maybe it's better. So, many questions there, so let me unpick a little bit. So, when was the moment that the financial system needed to change? So, let me start by saying that I've been in banking all my life. It's probably the single common pattern across everything I've done. When I graduated, I decided to even do a PhD in banking and finance. So it's kind of it's a passion and I'm still very passionate about it, right? So because of that, I've seen a lot, the ups and downs, and there's no doubt that after the crisis, it was more of a down moment. And a lot of things changed. So a lot of things changed from the industry, the capital requirements, regulatory requirements, and so being in banking after a few years after that, and at the time I was in Barclays and then Deutsche Bank, it became clear that things were different, right? So all we were talking about in banks were about cost cutting, compliance, regulation. The business model was also not very sustainable because capital requirements were up. So it became all of a sudden a little bit less exciting. So at the same time, especially in London at the time, there was this big wave, this was probably 10 years ago plus, the big initial wave of fintech. So it was very clear that externally, whilst banks were really stuck, there was a lot of innovation, creativity, and growth happening outside the system. And so, at a certain point, the contrast became very, very, very clear. This was the time when maybe very few of you probably remember it was Nutmeg launched. Now Nutmeg is JP Morgan Investment. And this was kind of a turning point, because clearly the small startups were starting to become bigger, and also banks were starting to realize. And so for me, this is kind of that moment where I realized, well, actually, probably a lot of more innovation and disruption is going to happen from within, outside the system, and it's very, very difficult to disrupt from within. And I always, as a personality, I like always to be part of the future rather than be part of the legacy of the past. So that was the moment where I realized, okay, probably there's so much more happening outside, and this is when I decided to go for it and be part of that new chapter. Right now, the mortgage specific question is kind of a sub-bullet of this, right? So what happened is that in the moment where I was kind of exploring and thinking and looking at the system, I was talking to a lot of people here, I actually decided to buy a house here in London. And it was a nightmare because as a Deutsche Bank, I was traveling a lot, literally I was never in London. And then I called my bank, which I will not name, and I said, you need to come to a branch and fill a form. And I said, that's not going to happen because I never, in a normal time, I'm never going to be, have the ability to come to a branch. So, and then I realized, how could it be that in the 21st century, we're still filling in forms where everything is online? And that's how the idea came up, right? So in this moment of, everything, it's a seismic shift, and then the more I was digging into that, and I realized mortgage was really left behind. In fact, it's still today not that advanced, so it's still that part of financial services is very complex. And so I thought, okay, that's a great challenge. I like a great challenge, and I decided to go and do something about it.
And I'm particularly interested about the beginning of your venture in 2017. What was the most difficult thing? What was the most important structural barrier that you encountered when you were going to innovate in such a highly regulated industry?
Okay, maybe I do without, if you guys can hear me. Maybe
it's fine.
I'll leave to you. Okay. Well, there are a lot. So I'll start by saying that setting up a startup is not easy. You see a lot of stories on Instagram, on socials, lots of great success stories, also Revolut, right? But you never see the beginning. You never see what's behind the scenes, and for sure it's clear that it's a bumpy road, and I would say without any doubt, because if you're thinking about starting your own company, you need to have that mindset that you're ready for it. I don't know any startup, that didn't have a couple of near-death moments or had a lot of moments of difficulty, right? So that's just to set it all up, because I think it's important to get in that mindset. And but I was in that mindset, so I was very, very happy. For me, the kind of trigger point was I really wanted to do this, and I knew that almost if I didn't do it at that time, I would have a regret forever. And so for me, it was a bigger risk to have the regret and not to do it than to do it, because I thought, well, if we fail, that's fine. It's a great experience, and I will have learned a lot, right? So having said that, what was the most difficult thing? So strangely enough, was actually on paper could have been very difficult because nobody had done it. There was not a playbook. There was not something where we could copy some other company somewhere else and then do it in London. Even the digital journey for mortgages, nobody has ever designed it. So I thought originally that my most difficult part would be building the tech and acquiring customers, because these are the typical things. And also I don't come from a tech background. But in reality, I think the most difficult thing was, the unexpectedly, what drove a lot of, not bumps in the road, but difficult, was actually getting the right team together. And I realized how critical that is. So that I would really encourage, if you ever set up a company, choose the right founder, choose the right investors, but then actually be very, very, very selective on the team. Because all of a sudden when you have a company, when you're a startup, it's not anymore about hiring based on a CV. You need to hire people that also really are there for the mission, they really believe in it, and they can roll up their sleeves, they can do aptitude. And that's very, very rare to find. So that is where we had a lot of people that joined and stayed, a lot of people that joined and they were not working out. So that was really not really, it's difficult, but you learn, right?
And what do you think, looking back, what did building a startup teach you that you could have not learned in a large financial institution, in banks or consulting?
Oh, a lot. Everything. I think a lot, I would say. So, well, I wouldn't, let's maybe kind of clarify. So,
And
if
if I can follow up, do you think that it is important if you want to become a founder to spend time in a large company?
Okay, I have my views, but I would take them with a pinch of salt, because everybody you talk to, you probably tell you that what they've done is the right journey.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit biased there. So let's start from the start. So a startup teaches you a lot, and there is no substitutes for experience. Let me start there, right? So I thought I knew it all because I've done so many McKinsey projects, so much banking, but actually I didn't, because a startup forces you to connect the dots of everything you know in a moment, and you actually become incredibly resourceful, incredibly. You know, I didn't know anything about tech, and I ended up sitting up with engineers and designing UX journeys and talking about architecture, which you didn't expect, right? So it forces you to really it's very intellectually stimulating, because you learn a lot, but you're forced to learn a lot, and everything you know you've learned maybe 15 years ago at university comes to fruition in a moment, right? The second thing it teaches you is to be in the details, which often you don't when you're in a big corporate, because you don't need to, because there are other people looking at the details, or you're in the details of one part of it. In a startup, you need to be able to operate at different levels. You need to talk to investors or regulators, and so be kind of a professional that kind of is kind of polished and all that. But then you need to be able to make sure that the numbers kind of adds up, or the specific code in a specific journey works, and you need to be able to look into that. So you kind of can span from the details to the big picture, which is very, very helpful. Very, very helpful. It's a great skills, but also you learn to know where to look, because if you've been in the details, when somebody else presents you something, you know where it can go wrong, which is incredible. I think the third thing it teaches you a lot is exactly that, is about things can go wrong, because there's always something, you're always in a precarious balance in a startup, it's always life or death, because you really need to get in the next funding round, you need to get the customer, or even if things are going well, you feel it's never enough, and so even the next chapter, you're always pushing for something more. So, and you learn that things can go wrong, and it's very valuable, because then when you do something else later, you do another startup, you already plan kind of not only for things going well, but you're kind of ready for every contingency. I see now a lot of Revolut, things are going well, but the different minds of different people, the ones that have done a startup, the people that have not, the people that have done a startup, they always think, okay, what's the plan A and what's plan B and plan C? And sometimes you really need to use plan C as well. And then it teaches you a lot about the team building, the energy, the vision, the mission, because in startup that's all you have. So you need to learn to motivate people to be all together in a difficulty. So how do you face a difficulty? If you think, guys, there was COVID a few years ago, every single startup was fundamentally could have been dead in that moment. So, and different founders and different CEOs, different teams reacted differently. And I think what made the difference at the end is it's probably three things. Is how the leadership framed the situation and brought the team together and treated the team. That made a big difference. Second is the resilience and the grit that everybody has. And then how the team felt they were part of a team or just individuals, right? That made a difference between the companies that got out of the other side and the ones that didn't. So to your question, so I think personally it does help to have some experience in a corporate, not corporate experience, but some experience in a more structured environment before. Because in a startup, nobody can teach you. You learn by doing, but you don't acquire a methodology, or there is not necessarily a training, right? So if you have done some training before on the job, then I think you can accelerate more in a startup. But a lot of people will tell you the opposite, but that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, you mentioned how building a fintech, a startup, Molo, really gives you different perspectives of financial services. So in 2023, after building Molo, you exited and you join Revolut. Why? And what convinced you to join Revolut and to take on this challenge?
Okay, well, I think it's mentioned before, I think I like a good challenge.
Yeah.
And at the time, there are probably two forces. Right? So first of all, at the time when I joined Revolut, there was a really big challenge I had, which was to get this banking license. It was not for granted. If I was really unclear whether we ever get it. I didn't even know a lot, but it was very clear that it was a game-changing potential event for the company and for UK fintech. And so, so from my point of view, I said, well, and by the way, the last thing is, I knew I could make a difference because what Revolut needed is somebody that would build a bank, but in a tech company. And it's very difficult to have that double DNA. It's very difficult to combine these two, but actually I've seen both. So I felt actually it was a sweet spot for me to run the bank and build it and talk the language of regulators want to talk into, right? But at the same time be able to articulate to Revolut what they need to do in a more technology and agile company. So for me it was the right opportunity, the right point in time. And I could not have done this if I had not set up Molo first, right? So sometimes some things come that you have not planned, but you just know is the right thing to do. So, by the way, at the time I thought, well, maybe this is going to last 6 months because we might never get the license, but let's give it a go, right? I like to dare a bit. And also on the other side, I sold Molo. I had a few months where I thought maybe just kind of relax now and do some, join some boards and do some advisory. And after 3 months, it was very clear this was not my cup of tea. And I got my husband started saying, maybe it's actually you should start doing something else. And so I thought, okay, that's a good push. I'll go for it.
And diving deep into Revolut, Revolut started as a product focused on international payments, and let's say today it has evolved into a global financial platform used by millions of people, and we can say that it's often described as a super app for finance, let's say. What do you think enabled that incredible growth, and what does that actually means in practice for users?
Okay, so here to mention millions of people, it's true. So right now we have more than 75 million customers globally, and I think 30 million in the UK. And just to give a sense of reference, I think globally we grow 1.5 million new customers every month. So at this point I need to ask, who has Revolut here, please? Because I need to check, okay, wow, is it true? So, wow, well done, fantastic, great. So then you know why.
A great job.
All right, good job. So why? I think that, everybody probably tries always to find the secret sauce, right? I don't think there is a silver bullet. In fact, there isn't. I think to get a successful startup, you need to almost have a lot of stars aligning. And that's why it's so difficult, okay? It's really difficult because it's not just the product, the tech, the people, it's also the investors, the funding, a lot of things. So in this case, they all came together. But ultimately, I think I probably had to point out what are the 2 or 3 key differentiating factors, right? First, it starts with the product. So this has been a product-led growth, superior product in terms of the digital product, the experience, but also specific use case. So that matters a lot. So at the beginning, when Revolut started going viral, it was mostly an FX product for people that were traveling, where in a situation where all the other banks were fundamentally charging massive fees to customers, and Revolut completely said no fees. So it's not just the digital product, which was great. It's just that there was a case, there was a value for money, there was a reason for customers to go. And that is very important to keep in mind, because sometimes I've seen a lot of startups that fall in love with the UX and so on, but UX itself doesn't make a difference, right? So it's a very clear angle to get into the market that went viral quite quickly, and the product was superior, and it was superior because the founder, Nick, is really obsessed with the product. So there's a level of attention to detail that is above and beyond anything else still today. So we continuously refine, continuously improve around what we see customers doing. So digital product, but effectively a superior product is kind of ingredient number one. I think ingredient number two is that I think Revolut was, it's kind of, everything is extreme, right? So you always think very bold, right? Everything is bold. So a lot of other startups, if you think also the other digital banks, have probably taken sequential steps. At Revolut, nothing is sequential. Everything is in parallel. Even today, we entering whatever in parallel like 15 markets, right? We launch. We have savings account, current account, then we launch crypto. So in the history of Revolut, there was always many things going parallel. So that accelerated growth. And that created a network effect because clearly customers all of a sudden found that this was an app where you could trade crypto, could get savings, investment. And so that became accelerated even more because everybody said, well, actually much better than anything else, right? So this concept of, it's moving fast in parallel is very different from anything I've seen. And then I don't think it's the last, I think it's probably the first one, is the people. It really makes a difference. So the culture of Revolut is very special. Again, driven by the founders. So again, the founders matter a lot, but it's all about getting the company people that are self-started, they are entrepreneurs, they don't need to be told what to do. And when you do that, then you have a lot of task forces across the company, like satellites, and everybody's like so empowered and so energetic, and there's a lot of, so they can make things happen much faster, rather than trying to move an army or a platoon like a lot of big corporates they operate, right?
And I'm particularly interested to the last part. You mentioned about people, and like Revolut has become a global bank with thousands of employees and millions of customers, yet still operates with a startup mentality. How do you balance these two things?
Yeah, it's probably a very difficult balance, and I think is a huge credit to the founding team really that kept it going, because as a startup grows, I experienced that myself. At the beginning it's very easy. Actually, the beginning is almost easy. Everybody's so excited, so energetic. It's a small group. You meet each other every day. But then as you grow and you need to hire more people, there's a big risk of dilution, and you big risk that all of a sudden you cannot translate the same culture to everybody. And so it's very, I don't think I know any other company that's really maintaining that so well balanced. So I think Revolut is because it's an obsession, I think, from the founders, but people and culture, the investment and the thinking and the processes and the really time allocated to continuously refining, continue pushing the people aspect. So how we hire, how we reward, how performance management works, is there are a lot of people dedicated to this. Is top share of mind for both founders. So that matters a lot. And second is so when you do that, then they define processes that are very rigid, but it's the only way, right? So the very rigid process. Like for hiring, we have a very structured process for hiring, and there's no exception. So no exception, meaning we have even our board members that go through the same process that our developer will go through. Sometimes it's extreme, but that's the only way, right? You codify. At Revolut, everything is like we define a playbook, then we implement it and we automate and codify as much as possible, and that gives us scalability, right? So you can ensure that there are people that do the interviews for new hires with the same mentality as if the founder would do the interviews, right? So that is a big part of it. And then I think thirdly, nothing is ever magic, right? So I think thirdly, but most importantly, is a continuous focus on it, top down. So it's really tone from the top. It's very easy for behaviors to slip. It's a slippery slope, right? But once in a while, effectively when Nick in particular sees that things are not going the right direction, it kind of makes sure it gives the right messages and takes the right action so that it signals where we need to go. In terms of, and, it happened recently that fundamentally we have our values and they're very important to the company. So they're not just on the wall, right? It's what we live and breathe every day. It's how performance management is done. Just to give an example, so we had, and they're also in conference and in our intranet there. what it means, and every quarter we do performance reviews, so we go through the values. So it's really grounded into that. And so just a few months ago, I think we had a town hall, global town hall, so we have 13,000 people there now, and where Fetti and Nick talked about it. He said that what he sees now, day in and day out, is not anymore the values of the company that he founded, and so he decided to rewrite it. So he rewrote it completely on the intranet and took everybody in a half an hour call through what it means. I mean, it makes a massive difference. I mean, it was quite direct, but effectively it's a big deal, right? So you have 13,000 people. A lot of people are new joining, a lot of people have not been there since the beginning. It's really important to continuously course correct, and you can never let go.
How did you manage to do that in half an hour?
Oh no, actually he did it in 10 minutes, so he's very fast. So no, he rewrote it before. He fundamentally said, well, I read it, I don't see the right behavior, so I took it upon me to rewrite it. This is what I wrote, please take note.
Okay.
So no, things happen very quickly. We don't do long meetings, everything happens, fast.
I would like to move to the news that you announced today.
Yes.
About becoming a full UK licensed bank. And because Revolut started as a disruptor for traditional banking, but today we can say that it is also becoming a fully regulated bank in several markets, such as UK from today. And how significant is this milestone for Revolut, and particularly for the UK branch? And what is the next phase of growth?
Okay, so it's a very important milestone, really important. I mean, I'm a bit biased, of course, but I'm trying to be neutral. So why is it important? So it's important because UK is our home market. It's the single largest market still in Revolut globally, by far. It's also our global headquarters. So it's not just one market, right? It's really the market. And the PRA is a global, one of the top 3 regulators globally. So it's actually a very important validation of the company overall, not just the UK, right? So because of all of that, it was a game changing for this market, because clearly being a bank allows us to do many more things that we couldn't do. So right now we have 13 million customers today in the UK. Let's say big banks like Lloyds and so on, they're probably 20-25 million. We're not far away from that. But still we couldn't do lending, we couldn't do a lot of things, right? So it's very difficult for customers to think of Revolut as their primary bank. So for the UK, the big change is that this allows us to now compete at the same level, on a level playing field with all the other big banks, and we think we can do much better. In fact, we will do much better with this, right? Unlocks new possibilities as a product, but also gives also a big vote of confidence for customers that can trust Revolut, they can bank with us, they don't need to have another bank. And I think especially about future generation, all of you guys, I would wonder why you'd have a need to go to a branch or to have another bank, right? But we needed this because otherwise there's always a trust factor, there's always a fact that if you cannot do lending then you need another bank and things like that. So all of a sudden we are a fully rounded bank, everything can be done on Revolut, and where we want to get to is that we are really the bank of, the primary bank of choice for everybody in the UK. And to do that, we need to get at this point. Yeah.
So and what is the next phase?
Yeah, and so the next phase, so just to complete on that, so just to say, so for the UK is very important, but then global is also very important for what I was saying before, because we are recorded in the UK, no regulators in the world will be very happy to give us a license if our home regulator has not authorized, right? So it unlocks all the global growth globally. I mean, not in a mechanistic way, but in a soft way. That's very important. So next phase is a lot. I mean, as I mentioned before, we always have too much that we can do. In the UK, the next phase is to effectively launch all the other products we don't have today. So lending, more in savings, investments, and a lot of other things to complete the range, but even more, right? So we're exploring some things. You've probably seen we now joined the FCA sandbox for stablecoins, so we're also very active in crypto. We are looking at the world of tokenization. We're talking about tokenized deposit right now in the market, so there's a lot of innovative things that we can do all of a sudden. So yeah, we're aiming to more than kind of double our customer base in the next 3 years. So that's a big ambitious target, but honestly, the rate at which we're going is going to get there. But we don't want anymore just to grow the customer base. We want to do more with our customer, be there for every single thing they need. So go deeper a little bit. So we talk about primary banking, which means make sure everybody thinks of Revolut, this is my primary bank, and this is where I want to, my partner for all my financial decisions going forward. Globally, a lot is coming up. You probably see we also announced we applied in the US for a banking charter. We are applying many other jurisdictions, so you probably see more coming this year. So globally, it's all about growth, and it's all about making sure we have a Revolut everywhere in the world. We have this goal of, which is being very public, that we want to achieve to be, in the next few years, to be in 100 countries with 100 million customers and 100 billion valuation. So I think today we are getting much closer to that.
You spoke about innovation, and I would like to zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture, because we know that AI is transforming many industries. I would like to understand, how do you see AI reshaping the financial industry, and how Revolut is approaching to this transition to this new technology?
Yeah, so I think AI is it's obvious that probably is a bit of a watershed moment, I think, for the world, right? Not just the financial industry, but clearly for financial industry, it's a game-changing technology, or it's kind of beyond the technology. So, but I think the change is more profound than when we move to digital, for example, right? It's more profound because AI is not only automatizing processes and activities, but it's substituting intelligence in a way. And so, and also it's going very fast. So the ability to transition, it's not easy to transition because things are changing every day. So in the financial industry is effectively already causing a disruption in terms of the process automation, customer interface, all the chat box that now everybody has, but also starting to do analytics, smart analytics, even marketing, right? So it's, I think in 5 years from now, probably there will be a massive shift. I don't know how much, but 50-60% of the activities today are manual will be, or even more, will be automated with AI. So then leaves the question, why is it more profound? It's more profound because it changes the world of work, right? It changes the talent kind of map. It changes the ways of working, but also changes the opportunities. And in particular, I think the biggest change is that when you adopt AI, you need to revisit your corporate structure, your corporate organization, because all of a sudden you might not need a lot of basic tasks to be ever done, which then creates a problem, because if AI does all the basic tasks, then no human will ever learn how to do them, which then takes away the ability to learn, on the job. So something needs to happen to kind of make sure we don't lose the opportunity. But for example, in our teams, it changes also the job qualifications, because you need all of a sudden you cannot have a team that you have somebody that manages and a lot of people that do. You need to think, okay, I want to have somebody smart that can use AI in a smart way, which is also difficult, but then actually doesn't lose the sense of judgment, the ability to critique what AI does, right? So I think companies will be organized in a very different way with AI from an organizational structure point of view. But there will be a lot of new jobs, a lot of new opportunities, like always, right? Because it's always some things are not needed anymore, but new things are coming up already. So already being very qualified on data, on analytics is very important. Being able to interrogate AI system is very important, but creativity is always very important. So I think will be a transition mostly. At Revolut, we are embracing AI across the board. So we are really doing a lot. That's a Revolut way. We don't just do anything sequentially. We just go full in. So, but the other thing, we have been using AI for a long time. So it's not not a new thing. We've been using machine learning and advanced AI for the last, 4 or 5 years. Now it's an acceleration, so what we've done, we have incorporated our technology department into two. One is the AI, and effectively this department is pushing AI use cases across the whole company, but also teams independently. What I told my team is like, well, if there's something you really don't want to do and it's really boring, find a way to automate it, and then it's so easy, you can have an agent and does it. So to give you an example, so we are automating and have agentic AI now live on things like financial crime processing, fraud detection, transaction monitoring, sanction screening, which are really, and actually AI is much better than a human because there's no bias. We're using AI on customer-facing interactions. We have a bot that's been developed in many years that now manages 80% of the customer chat inquiries, which means that the remaining are the more sophisticated inquiries where actually we can have people, the same people as before, but spending a bit more time and being more focused with the customers. We use AI in marketing, actually, to check compliance, fin prompts. They're very, very good. We use it also in basic things, even regulatory and compliance, to check policies and check compliance is incredible, what can be done. So really, there is no limit. You can use it everywhere.
And where do you think AI will have the biggest impact? Like in which sector of, which part of Revolut is currently having the biggest impact?
Well, I think we'll have the biggest impact on the operation side, in technology, of course. I mean, technology is already, the train has left the station anyway, but operations, because all these tedious manual processes that even automation would not solve, then you can not only automate, but smartify in a way, right? You could have an AI agent being effectively a fin crime agent and be much better at reaching out, notifications on. So I think operations and technology is definitely the biggest one. At a certain point, AI will get to a point where we make a massive difference, in the customer interface. Because I think it will come to a point where it's not just the bot responding to inquiries, but we'll be much more around the customer. So there'll be a voice interface, and if I think you guys will talk to somebody, I don't know where, but on the phone or your watch, and this AI will not be an app anymore. So that's my vision, right? That now we have all these apps of different things which are starting to be difficult to keep track of. In the future, the digital interface can be, it's not digital, it's like AI will be the interface, and the AI will be your agent that will do whatever you tell, say, we can order pizza tonight, but actually can you check when I need to go to the doctor, and will be all inclusive. So I think that's a big frontier.
Thank you. I would like to ask you the last question before opening the discussion to the Q&A. And I think that here in this room there are many students, particularly Italian students, interested in fintech or startups. And I also think and believe that Italy has extraordinary talent in finance, engineering, and entrepreneurship. And what do you think it would take for Europe and perhaps Italy to build the next global fintech giant?
Well, I think it's happening, so I don't think it will take a lot. It's and I think Italy should and can already do it. We have fantastic companies, right, in Italy, like Satispay and many others. So I think it is happening. I know we always hear about the US companies, and there is a little bit of a asymmetry, but there are companies like even Mistral now in AI, which is in France, which is growing. It's growing very well. I mean, Revolut is an example. In Italy, there are fantastic. So I think it's not if, it's just happening already. Now, what will be needed is sometimes a little bit of a push, because we have great companies. We have probably the best talent. I think, especially in Italy, it's great talent, and in fact, it's probably the best talent, I would say, in the world, because I'm a little bit biased here as well. But it's true, right? So if I go to New York or here in London, some of the best people are Italian, also other Europeans, but we're great schools, great training, great mindset, and great resilience. So, and we do fantastic things wherever we go. So I don't think there's any problem there. The problem is sometimes the belief. So, well, two things is the country needs to believe and push and be a little bit more nationalistic and support their companies stronger, better. I think we need to be a bit bolder and believe in ourselves a little bit better. If you go to US, that's a big difference. And people just shoot for the stars, and they might fail 10,000 times, but they're still very, very happy and very, very self-confident. And then the third thing is we need to, I think there's a capital industry, the venture capital investor base is very different, a little bit different in Europe and US. It's changing now. Because US venture capital really, there's a lot of money, they go for very bold ideas, but effectively they will have a lot of money to deploy. Europe is a little bit more risk averse, and if you are risk averse, then you can afford like the next, 10 billion or whatever, even 1 billion company. So I guess we have all the ingredients, and it's happening. If we had to have a push, it would be one of these three dimensions, all three of them.
Thank you.
This is for questions. If anyone has a question,
How much time
we'll
left
come
do you
with that.
No, I have like 15 minutes. Oh, we have it there.
Yeah.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much for giving such a coherent conversation, and thank you, Ferdy, as well, for asking amazing questions.
Madame? Yeah.
So my question is, as you mentioned, Revolut is pretty risk averse, and from my understanding, the crux of any good financial technology company is having the trust of your customers. So Revolut does have trust of all of the people here, since there are so many of us using it. But how do you balance being risk averse and not having to pay, like not at the cost of losing that trust? How do you balance risk and trust?
Well, maybe just to clarify, maybe I don't think I wouldn't say that Revolut is risk averse. Well, maybe I said it, but maybe it was miscommunicated. So it's probably definitely not risk averse, because we wouldn't be here. It wouldn't got to where it is today if it was completely risk averse. In life, you need to take a bit of make some bold moves and take some risk if you want to have a high reward as well, right? So definitely not associate Revolut with risk averse, right? So I think the point is, the trust point is more about the fact that Revolut is operating in an environment which is financial services. We're not Facebook, right? We're not in a dating app game, although that's also requires some trust. Or we're not a pure technology company. In financial services, trust is key. You guys probably experience that every day, right? You wouldn't put your money in a company that you don't know what is going to be there tomorrow, right? So trust is a key currency in banking, and inevitably Revolut is younger compared to Lloyd's, Barclays, all these big banks you see every corner, and so trust takes a lot of time to be earned. So we are building our trust base, but we're very young, so it takes a bit longer. But that's our key game right now, our key focus. We want to make sure people understand that we are exactly like this bank. And in fact, in 5 years, this problem won't even exist, because I don't think it's a generational point as well, right? People already, I think my kids, they don't even think that they need to go to a branch or see. And so that's what we are going through, right? Which is building step by step, day by day, a little bit of additional trust, credibility by protecting customers, ensuring we are safe, we're secure, ensuring we maintain our promises and all that, and being a bank helps a lot.
Thank you.
On that.
Thank you very much for sharing the insights. I would like to hear more about connecting Revolut's mission and the goal to have customers worldwide. I was just doing a quick check on which countries are being supported, and it's mainly developed countries. It's Europe Economic Area, it's Switzerland, Japan, all of these countries that have to some extent, developed financial online banking and stuff like that. What would be your comment, of course, if you're at liberty to discuss, for enabling these services in some underdeveloped areas in this regard?
Yeah, so that is something that she's very live. So we don't discriminate, we don't differentiate between developed and not developed countries. clearly we started, Revolut was born in UK and then immediately Europe. So that covers a big chunk of the developed world. But in reality, our expansion plans, which are not just plans, they actually have teams on the ground. We are in many countries that are not probably you wouldn't classify as developed. So we are, and so we are kind of now have teams. Teams meaning we are applying for licensing, building a bank or payment company in many countries in Asia, like so from India to Australia, New Zealand. They're also developing, also in India, Singapore, Malaysia. So all these countries there. In South America, we already have a banking license in Mexico, but we are also developing, and we're actually already live also in countries like Brazil, Colombia, and many others there. So they're all on our map. You probably don't see them then because we're not live, and that's why today's event was a big event, because the regulators in these developing countries, they really look up to the main country, and so this will unlock now all of a sudden a lot of these activities. But we are definitely there, and in fact we are even in countries where very few other banks went, and sometimes we're asked by even regulator why would you go there. But our view is that it doesn't matter, so you want to be global, and everywhere somebody goes in the future, if you think banking or finance, you should think Revolut.
Hello, and thank you for your time. Looking into the next 5 years, what do you think will be a key factor that will make Revolut push at this rate so many features while growing the number of employees exponentially, say?
So just for me to understand, you mean which key factor, what's the key success factor to enable that?
Yeah, I would say the key success factor that will enable to still keep pushing so many features and growing in so many different sectors while growing the number of employees and keeping the company culture as it is.
I think it would be a lot leadership and people that would be critical, because that nothing happens without that, and it's not just, it's actually true. So it's all about people at the end. It's all about how much people feel ownership. So if everybody keeps this mentality, startup mentality and entrepreneurship, then you can achieve great things. If all of a sudden we kind of start becoming more corporate, you just kill everything. That's clearly important. The second thing is our operational platform needs to be resilient, robust, and we need to keep investing in it, because clearly we do have a central platform. That's the difference between Revolut and many other banks. So it's a centralized technology stack. Of course we have teams across the world, but the concept is that we not build a new tech stack everywhere we go, because we want the same app, the same look and feel actually globally, right? So clearly this is centralized, and today is serving, until like 6 months ago, was serving kind of one bank and few payments company. Today, after 6 months, it's serving 3 banks and many payments companies. If you fast forward 1 year from now, we'll probably be, 5+ banks, right? So it needs to be scalable, resilient, so we need to continuously invest in that to make sure it doesn't get stretched too much.
Hi. Thank you so much for your talk. It's been really interesting to hear all your insights. I just wanted to ask you about Molo and Revolut. So obviously those were both like first movers in their industry. So I wanted to know more about how you managed to capitalize on like the market and the dominant players, and like what the challenges were, what the process sort of looked like.
So in general, for the startup that wants to kind of break through in something new, let's say, Well, I think at the end is it's kind of very similar. The challenge, I think, of the startup, more or less, but there are always some kind of key gating items. In fact, I think that's why it's very good to set up a startup more than once, because the first time you get all the mistakes, second time you can, fix them and do it the right way. And there's no way out of that, right? So everybody will make mistakes. So, and that's how you learn. I would say, for me, they always, maybe, 3 to 4 to 5 things, right? The product, getting a product right, there's this product market fit concept. It's very important. It probably comes first, even before funding, because at the end you need to know that you have something that makes sense. So otherwise you not get people around this, you not get funding, so on. And usually this is done even before becoming a company. Usually you want to have an idea, you want to build something manual, I don't know, and test it, talk to customer, understand is there some meat in there or not, right? So product market fit is a key moment of, do I have something here or not? And it's okay to pivot, it's okay to iterate. A lot of the most successful companies maybe spend 2 years in stealth mode and try to do something, test it, didn't work, and then move to something else. And then sometimes they found that one of the lateral things they were doing became a great product, right? So that's one. The second one is clearly people, so the team is super, super important. The co-founders, it's good to have a co-founder, not mandatory, but it's good. But a lot of co-founders don't end up working out well, so you really need to think very, very careful about the team that you rally around you, because that's where the majority of the startups, they fail for that. So I really like you to think about it. I didn't think so, but it does make a massive difference. Then capital, clearly having the right capital. So funding rounds, investors, VCs, unfortunately it takes so much time. It takes so much time for everybody. You really don't want to spend the time because you want to build a company, but you need to train yourself into that. You need to really make it part of your mission. And a lot of startups, that's another big stage gate that a lot of startups don't get through. Even Revolut in the early days was struggling to get funding. I don't know any company, any startup that didn't struggle to get funding. So everybody, so you need to be used to hearing a lot of no's and be okay with that. But fund is important. So, and then you have this, typically, this is phase one. And this phase one is very clear because it's a little bit the chicken and egg problem, I would say. And I always told this to the team because these three factors, each one of them relies on the other. So investors will give you money if you have a good product and they want to see an initial team. But you cannot get the team if you don't have some money at the beginning. And so you need to kind of say, where do you start, right? So usually the best way to start, very low profile, don't spend any money, do a proof of concept, start getting some friend investors, so if you can bootstrap, that's the best. But these three things are probably the top three things at the very beginning, right?
So this is more of a question regarding the start of Molo. Basically you mentioned that mortgage, that whole industry in general, was outdated and is still kind of outdated. That's where it started. Well, my question is, when the process starts of an industry to start to become more advanced, we see more data processing, more AI automation, but there is still like a large difference between the top players and the bottom players. Basically, how do you, like, if you find an idea and there are bigger companies that have kind of figured it out, but most of the market hasn't figured it out, would that encourage you or to discourage you from trying to create a product for them?
Okay, so you say if you have an idea, you think it's differentiating, and majority of the market has not figured that out?
Yeah, so, like, for example, with Molo, you're like, you created that first solution. Yeah, it still exists. But would you say that the mortgage industry is still more advanced, so there's more opportunities?
Oh yeah, there's much more opportunity, so
then if I want to create something in the mortgage industry and I see Molo and I'm like, okay, that's already been created, so why doesn't everyone use it?
yeah, so
Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
yeah, I get it. So you could translate to digital banking right now. You can say, would it be worthwhile to go into a digital bank, right? So, well, I think you always need to compare and contrast how differentiating what you can do is vis-a-vis what's existing, and what's the effort to get it there. So what are the barriers to entry really? Effort meaning not just money, but time and so on, right? So if you have something that you think is incredibly differentiating, take mortgage. If you had an idea that you click a button, get a mortgage now, and you can make it happen, that's very differentiating. And so it's definitely worth it going into that, provided you can deliver on that, and it's not massive in terms of, it's not going to take 10 years, right, to build that. So, I mean, maybe we bring it to life. So, if you take mortgages, for example, I think in mortgages, we went through a journey with Molo. I think we did something quite impressive at the time. We even got our mortgage robo-advised license by the FCA, which was quite impossible. The whole journey took like 15 minutes. You could really get a mortgage. But we faced a lot of unexpected hurdles because of the regulation, really, because the FCA, they wanted something to be done manually. There are a lot of things. So I don't think we got really where I thought we could get. We should get from a technological point of view. We could have got there, but because there are a lot of other things that we didn't get. And then now, for example, even Molo went a little bit backwards because we sold the company to a very traditional lender, and we sold the company, they completely changed it. It's no tech anymore. I mean, so what you see Molo now is a different company, but it's okay. So it's not okay, but you need to decide. So in mortgages, and banks are nowhere, right? They're where they were. So yeah, I'm thinking mortgages, there's a massive opportunity. It's still not disrupted. Even Revolut, we're launching mortgages in Europe, it's still not great. So if you had a magic idea, and I think it will become, right? I think there will be something, because technically it's feasible, we've built it before. Then I'll go for it if you think you can deliver, right? If you take the flip side of this digital banking, I'm not sure whether I will set up a digital bank today, because this is a multi-year process. Just because of the regulatory approval, is a multi-million investment. It takes a lot of capital and people. And honestly, the ability to really differentiate is very limited. So I wouldn't think, it's probably these two factors, so I wouldn't think it would be a good use of time right now, because even if you get there super fast, you're probably, if lucky if you can build something like Monzo or Starling or Revolut. And in fact, it might be difficult because there's also a network effect by now, right? There are 2 or 3 players already taking all the talents and all that. So that's how I think about it.
We'll take 2 together.
Yeah, we probably can do 2-1 because then I need to leave you guys.
Yeah, okay. I've been using the Revolut investment platform and feature for more than a year now, and I think it has great potential. So I wanted to ask you, if you're planning to develop that in order to compete at a more international and global level. Also, for example, it's an interactive brokers. So how are you planning to develop that in order to compete at European levels?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say thanks you for the feedback. So that is not yet where we want it to be. I think it's a bit the newcomer. The investment platform has been newer, and we're very, very aware that it's many things we should be doing. In fact, it's very basic. Until a few months ago, we could only invest, I think, in US stocks, only the single stock. We now introduce ETFs. Now we have more global stocks. So as you see, we're improving, but we know it's behind the curve, especially compared to the players you mentioned. So the good news is we have big plans, and we're doing a lot of work to get there, but some of this work requires also additional licenses, which we are working through. So that's why it's a lead time. But yeah, our view is that this becomes a wealth hub, right? So where people can do everything, do trading, manage a pension, buy also ETF, but effectively, and be advised at a certain point. So in fact, we're really developing it, partially AI, partially people. So I think so it's all in the plan. It's gonna happen. It's not gonna happen overnight. But where we want to be is to a place where we're actually better than Robinhood. I think Robinhood are quite good. We have everything, every single asset class, even private capital there, private assets. So, and it's not just speculative assets, not just the day trader, but also more basic one like pensions on, but also empower much more with AI and with advice, or give people solution rather than just the ability to take actions, right? So give them there's a lot to do, and that's a big area of focus.
Thank you.
One last question.
I had 2. I hope I can sneak one more. So 2 questions. I think you mentioned a lot of services that you plan to introduce on Revolut. If I'm correct, they're all consumer services. Do you plan to introduce business products, business services?
So we actually
or anything
do.
that is not consumer oriented?
No, we do. We do have already a segment of Revolut that is for businesses, mostly SMEs, but not only. So it's been going on. It's probably a bit more recent, so less talked about, but it's been going on for the last probably 2 to 3 years, and it's incredibly successful. So we have business banking effectively, and we have more than 100,000 businesses globally, which is mostly Europe and UK. They're mostly SMEs, but not only. So we did big, good corporate deals. For example, here with Manchester United, Wiz, and a few others. So we have diversified, but majority is SME. So yeah, that's happening. There are a lot of new products we're adding all the time. And I think in probably 1 year from now, will be probably 50-50 in terms of contribution of retail vis-a-vis business.
Okay. And then final question is, in the last, I think, in the 10 years, I think after the financial crisis, we had a huge activity in the fintech space.
Yeah.
Is the fintech's golden age finished, or there is more to do for fintechs? Because now we have many digital banks, payment companies, and a huge amount of companies that do all the backends that end users don't see, but they exist. All the break tech companies and all the companies that automate everything that happens in the backend. But is there more to do in the fintech space?
No, I think it's never finished. So I think it's just graduating to the next level. So the early stage of fintech was this kind of new small companies. It's like the babies, right, in a way. We're now in stage 2, where all these babies graduating to be teenagers, let's put it this way. And now we had an explosion of companies at the time. Now they're starting to consolidate. So there will be us streamlining. So there will be less number of companies that are left, but they're bigger scales, right? So they're grown up right now. They're still startup, but they will grow up. And I think what's the next phase, it will be convergence, right? So fintech, reality is what's fintech, right? Banks are becoming fintech. So in reality, at a certain point, there will be hardly differentiation. So if you think about the most grown-ups, like think about Revolut and so on, and then what other banks are doing, because other banks have been forced to invest more now in tech and build digital. So they're converging to be a little bit more tech-driven. So fintech will become, the bank in the future, I think, will be only fintech, right, in a way. So it's a different stages, in my view.